This happened on my second night shift at Pinewood General Hospital. I was 31 years old, working long hours to support my family while studying for my nursing degree. The hospital was old. The lights were dim, and the machines hummed constantly. I took this job to help others, but I couldn't shake a feeling of unease. That night, something felt wrong. As I walked past room 302, the lights flickered. I thought it was a faulty bulb, but when I checked, the lights were fine. Yet the flickering continued. Patients began calling for help, and my heart raced each time the lights dimmed. I brushed it off but felt dread settling in. Weeks passed, but the strange happenings didn't stop. One night, as I moved through the pediatrics wing, I felt a cold gust of air. It was late, and I was alone. I didn't know where the chill came from. I told myself it was just the hospital's draftiness, but I felt uneasy. Then, supplies started going missing. I would take out things for a procedure, and they'd vanish. One moment, I had a syringe, the next moment, it was gone. I wondered if I misplaced it, but my gut said something was off. Then came the laughter. One night, it echoed from the children's ward. I froze. It felt out of place in a hospital at that hour. I quickly walked to the ward, but it was empty. I looked in each room. Every bed was unoccupied. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself it was just my imagination. Still, my skin felt prickly. The last event still haunts me. It was late and quiet. I sat at the nurse's station, watching the monitors. Suddenly, I heard whispers from the break room down the hall. They grew softer as I approached, replaced by a heavy silence. My heart raced again. I pushed the door open, but it was empty. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I asked my coworkers about the strange noises and shadows, but they laughed it off. "Don't let the night shift get to your head," they would say. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just overworked. But sometimes I wondered if there was something lurking in Pinewood's shadows. Then one night, I walked past room 302 again. The lights flickered again. My heart dropped. I stepped closer, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a figure inside. I couldn't make out any features, but it felt like it was watching me. Panic hit. I stumbled back and couldn't breathe. I turned and ran, never looking back. What was that? I still don't know. Now, every time I pass by that room, a chill runs down my spine. I can't shake the feeling that something is still there, waiting, watching. I try to focus on my patients, but the unease never leaves me. What happened in that room? What is hidden in the hospital's shadows? I don't think I'll ever really know. That night, the air felt different. I stepped into Pinewood General again, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. I was on the pediatrics floor, scheduled to keep an eye on a few patients. The normal hum of the machines offered little comfort. As I walked down the hall, I glanced at room 302. I shivered, recalling the flickering lights, that gnawing feeling. I reached the nurse's station and noticed my colleague, Emily, exchanging whispers with another nurse. They paused, and I felt their eyes on me. I brushed it off and focused on my tasks. Maybe it was time to address these feelings head-on. They could just be exhaustion talking. Just after midnight, I made my rounds. As I entered a patient's room, I paused. The familiar cold draft whispered past me again. I attributed it to the ancient hospital structure. Yet, when I opened the window to let in some fresh air, I could have sworn I heard a child's laughter nearby. My breath caught. It couldn't be. This was the pediatrics wing. Determined to brush it off, I continued my rounds. I prepped a syringe for medication, then turned to grab a vial from the counter. When I turned back, the syringe had vanished. I searched the counter, my heart racing. "Focus," I told myself. "You're tired." Frustrated, I pulled a new syringe from the supply drawer. Around 2 a.m., I stepped outside for a moment of fresh air. As I walked toward the entrance, I caught movement near room 302 again. My heart raced. There it was, the flickering light. This time, it was more erratic, as if calling out to me. I fought the urge to run. It was just a light, I reminded myself. But I couldn't shake the feeling someone was inside. Someone or something. I reluctantly walked to the door, my hand trembling. Before I could knock, I heard whispering. I moved closer, pressing my ear against the cool metal, straining to make out the words. "Help me," a faint voice pleaded, sending chills down my spine. My rational mind screamed to leave, but my curiosity pulled me forward. I pushed the door slightly ajar. Nothing prepared me for the sight inside. The room was empty, but the bed covers were neatly arranged. What had I expected to find? Heart pounding, I stepped inside. The whispers grew louder, filling the air like static. I stepped back, panicked, and jolted out of the room, slamming the door shut. I stumbled into the hallway, my mind racing. I needed to talk to someone, anyone. But who would believe me? My colleagues would just laugh again. The more I thought about the figure I had seen, the more real everything felt. I reached the staff break room, wanting solace. As I entered, the lights flickered overhead. I froze again, feeling that familiar dread return. That moment of stillness stretched, and just as I opened my mouth to call out, everything went dark. "Emily!" I called out, but there was only silence. My heartbeat thundered in the blackness. I could feel cold air swirl around me again, and this time it didn't feel like the hospital's draft. I took a shaky step forward, ready to turn back when I heard it again, a child's laughter echoing in the dark. I had to know what was happening. More importantly, I had to get out of there. But the door was gone. There was only the laughter and the shadows closing in. Fear clawed at my throat as I turned to run. I stumbled through the darkness, each step sending a pulse of terror through me. The laughter echoed in my ears, chilling and playful, contrasting with the panic rising in my chest. I felt a presence, something lurking just out of sight. My hands searched wildly for the walls, for a way out, but there was nothing but the oppressive black around me. As I moved aimlessly, I thought I heard whispers again, repetitive phrases blurring together: "Help me, come play," and somewhere, a soft sob. My heart raced. I was alone in a hospital filled with children, yet I felt absolutely isolated. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered back to life. I squinted against the brightness. My surroundings had changed. I was no longer in the break room but standing at the entrance of the pediatrics wing. Confusion swirled in my mind. Had I just been imagining everything? I hesitated, glancing back at the break room. It looked normal, untouched. But the laughter still lingered, floating just beyond my reach. I took a deep breath and walked cautiously down the hall, the weight of curiosity mixed with fear guiding my steps. A distant commotion caught my attention. It was coming from the nurse's station. I headed toward the noise, hoping to find Emily or anyone who could clarify what was happening. As I approached, I heard snippets of conversation, urgent tones mixed with nervous laughter. "Did you see the way the lights went out? No one believes what happened last night." I pushed through the door, interrupting their gossip. Emily looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to worry. "There you are." We were starting to get concerned. Her brow furrowed. "What did you see?" "Nothing. I mean, I just..." My voice faltered. I was still trying to make sense of it all myself. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what I had felt. "I heard something in room 302. Emily exchanged a knowing glance with the other nurse, Sarah. "Room 302. Sarah whispered, her face pale. "You shouldn't go near there. There's a reason it's empty." "What do you mean?" I asked, irritation mixing with lingering fear. "There's been talk that the room is different. No child has stayed there for long. They hear things, voices, laughter. Emily looked around, lowering her voice. The previous nurse went in and never came back. A chill slid down my spine. So, it wasn't just me. Others had felt it, too. What are you saying? That room 302 is haunted or something? It's not just rumors. Something happened there, and it hasn't been the same since. Emily's voice trembled slightly. They took the last patient out after strange occurrences. We've kept it closed since then. I took a step back, piecing it together. The laughter, the whispers, it couldn't be a coincidence. I need to go back, I have to figure it out. I need to know if it's true. Emily shook her head, panic rushing into her eyes. You can't. It's dangerous. But I was already determined. Feeling the familiar thrill of dread and curiosity intertwine, I turned and headed for the hallway again. I'll be quick. Before I could reach the door to room 302, a loud crash echoed from behind me. The lights flickered again, and I felt a shift in the air, like something was just behind me, waiting. I turned around slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. That's when I saw it, a fleeting shadow darting away from the nurse's station, heading straight for room 302. Wait! I shouted, taking a step forward, but the door slammed shut before I reached it. The sound reverberated in the halls, sealing it tight. Now, I needed to know what lay inside more than ever. I couldn't turn back. I approached the door, heart pounding. The air felt thick, heavy with anticipation. I pressed my ear against the cold surface, listening for any sign, any sound from within. Silence. The kind of silence that felt charged with energy, as if the very walls were holding their breath. I hesitated, fingers hovering just above the handle. Taking a breath, I twisted the knob. To my shock, it clicked open. The door swung inward, revealing a dimly lit room. Shadows danced across the walls, and a few scattered toys lay on the floor, forgotten. The atmosphere was electric, unsettling, yet oddly inviting. I stepped inside, my footfall muffled by the worn carpet. The laughter that had haunted me earlier seemed to swell and fade with each passing second. Hello. I called out, my voice a shaky whisper. Nothing answered except the soft creak of the door behind me closing. I turned, startled, but saw no one. I looked back at the room, my breath quickening. This was where the previous nurse had vanished, where children had fled in terror. I felt the weight of that history surround me. As I moved further in, I noticed something glinting in the corner. I approached it cautiously, my curiosity getting the better of my fear. It was an old music box, dusty and covered in cobwebs. I picked it up, the delicate mechanism surprisingly intact. Just as I was about to open it, a soft voice whispered my name. Help me. I jumped, nearly dropping the music box. I spun around, but there was no one there. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but I couldn't. I needed to know more. I opened the music box, the haunting melody spilling out, filling the room with an eerie calm. The laughter returned, louder this time, intertwined with sobbing. I could see shadows flickering at the edges of my vision. Fear clenched around my heart. Was it the children? Were they trapped here, lost? Who's there? I shouted, trying to mask my fear. My voice echoed back at me, amplified in the empty room. The shadows shifted, dark forms merging and separating, like they were dancing in rhythm to the music. Then, a figure materialized within the shadows. It was small, childlike, with eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. The silhouette resembled a child, but something about it felt wrong. Its smile was wide and toothy, an unsettling contrast to the sadness that swirled around it like fog. Come play, it said, the voice sweet but tinged with something sinister. We can have so much fun. I backed away, the music still playing, entrancing yet terrifying. No. What do you want? I yelled, desperate. The figure tilted its head, a look of mock confusion on its face, as if my fear amused it. Help me, it repeated, an echo of the earlier voice. My heart raced as realization gripped me. This wasn't just a game, not anymore. I was on the verge of something dangerous. The laughter crescendoed, filling the room as more shadows began to take shape. I had to get out. I turned on my heel and sprinted for the door, but the shadows swirled around me, wrapping around my legs like tendrils. I shouted, panic surging within me as the music box stopped, leaving me shrouded in silence once more. Then everything went dark. I gasped as I tumbled into a void, the darkness wrapping around me like a thick blanket. The sensation of falling stopped abruptly, and I found myself back in the room, but things were significantly different. The shadows had deepened, pulling away from the walls and creeping closer. I could sense their weight and presence, a suffocating pressure that filled me with dread. I blinked, trying to get my bearings, but the whispers had intensified, a chorus of pleas that cut through the silence. Help us! Help us! They cried, overlapping and echoing in my mind. I could hardly think over their desperate tones. The music box lay open at my feet, silent now, but that haunting melody was still carved into my memory. What do you want from me? I shouted again, hoping for some clarity in this spiraling nightmare. One of the shadows flickered forward, revealing the childlike figure once more, its grin wider and more unsettling than before. Play with us, it urged, the voice dripping with a sugary sweetness that felt all wrong. You can't leave yet. The fun is just beginning. It gestured, and suddenly, the toys around the room trembled to life. A stuffed bear crawled to me, its button eyes alive with a soulless gaze. A doll swayed side to side, humming a tune that echoed the music box. My pulse quickened. This wasn't just a game. The laughter morphed into shrieks, breaking apart like glass, scattering pieces of my sanity. I wanted to panic, to scream, but my voice felt trapped within, heavy and suffocated by fear. Stop it! I cried, finally finding the courage to confront the twisted scene. Just let me out. I'm not here to play. I felt the cold grip of the shadows tightening again, wrapping around my arms, pulling me back towards the center of the room. The more I struggled, the tighter they held me. In that moment, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Across the room, in the darkest corner, something glimmered faintly. It was a second music box, different from the first, small and delicate, nestled beneath an antique table. The shadows seemed to recoil from it, their dark forms trembling as if in fear. Instinct pushed me toward the other box, and despite the constriction of shadows, I forced myself to reach it. I grabbed it, feeling its chill against my warm skin. With shaking hands, I pried it open. This one was empty, no melody to fill the air, just the hollow echo of what once was. The moment I opened it, the shadows shrieked, their previously mocking smiles distorting into anger. No! Don't! They wailed. I didn't know what I was doing, but it felt like a lifeline, something I had to hold on to. I felt a surge of energy as a bright light emanated from the box, pushing against the encroaching shadows. Then, the room shook. The toy bear collapsed onto itself, the doll fell limp to the ground, and the laughter was replaced by furious wailing. I dropped the music box, my instincts screaming to flee. I dashed toward the door, but the shadows surged forward, fighting against the light. As I burst through the door, I heard a voice, soft yet powerful. You weren't supposed to find that. I froze, dread coiling in my stomach. I turned, panic flooding me anew. Whatever I had unleashed was now aware of me. I ran. I sprinted down the corridor, my heart pounding in my chest. The office doors and patient rooms blurred past me, each one a potential hiding spot for whatever darkness lurked behind me. I didn't look back. The muffled whispers flooded my ears, pressing in on my thoughts. Help us! Help us! The hallway stretched endlessly, as if it were playing tricks on my mind. I caught my breath briefly, pressing against the wall. I needed to think, needed to gather my wits. Somehow, I had to escape this nightmare. I took a few steps back toward the door, ready to reconsider my options when a clattering noise echoed from the room I had fled. The familiar sound of porcelain against the floor sent chills down my spine. I glimpsed the doll again, its sinister smile now shattered. My mind raced as I remembered the other stories whispered to me in the past, the legends of the old hospital wing where toys had once come alive. "What's wrong with you?" I muttered under my breath. "This isn't real." But the dread clawing at my gut said otherwise. I had stumbled into something ancient and sinister, something meant to stay hidden. Turning sharply, I found myself in the break room, a flickering fluorescent light casting erratic shadows against the walls. Just as I thought I could catch my breath, a cold breeze swept through the room, making the hair on my arms stand on end. I looked around, half expecting to see that childlike figure staring at me with wide, hungry eyes. I walked slowly toward the exit, the sense of urgency pressing at my back like a predator. The door to the stairwell was directly across from me. If I could just reach it, maybe I could get to the basement and find help. But as I approached, I froze again. There was something on the ground. A small object, glimmering in the harsh light. I knelt down to pick it up, steadying my breathing as dread washed over me. It was a tiny key, its ornate design twisted and unnatural, and it felt wrong in my hand, like it belonged to something I had no right to possess. That's when I heard it. A soft giggle, high and clear, drifting from the hallway. My stomach dropped. I turned toward the sound. It was coming from the direction of the patient rooms. Every instinct told me to run, to avoid whatever awaited me there, but curiosity tugged at me. What if it was a real child? I hesitated for only a moment before the echoes of the shadows pulled me forward. As I crept down the hall, the giggles turned into whispers, and I could almost hear their words now. "Find us. Find us." I reached the first room, its door ajar. Inside, the faint light flickered, shadow puppets dancing along the walls. I pushed the door open further, revealing a scene that twisted my stomach. The sheets were pulled back, and the bed was empty. The toys scattered throughout the room stared back at me, eyes gleaming in that unnatural way. Before I could back away, the door creaked loudly, and a shadow seemed to stretch across the room. I wasn't alone. "Who are you?" A small voice whispered from the darkness. I took a step back, heart racing. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. "I'm waiting," the voice insisted, soft yet demanding. Then I felt the cold grip of the shadows closing in again. I bolted down the hall, my thoughts racing, but that whisper trailed me, haunting me. "Find us." I could have sworn I heard it again. This time, though, there was something else woven into it, a promise, a threat. With each step, the urgency grew heavier. I had to figure out what was happening, or I might never escape. I reached for the stairwell door, knowing it might be my only chance. But when I flung it open, I realized I wasn't alone. Someone was waiting for me. I stumbled back the moment I saw the figure in the stairwell. It was just a silhouette, barely more than a dark shape against the flickering light, but something about it felt familiar. My heart raced, and my skin prickled. I fought the urge to scream. "Who's there?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting the shadows to reach for me. The figure stepped closer. It was a woman, her eyes wide and eerily hollow. "You need to come with me," she said, her tone flat, devoid of emotion. "They won't stop until you find them." "Find who?" I stammered, backing away. There was something unsettling about her gaze, as if she were staring right through me. "Those who are trapped," she replied, glancing behind her, as if expecting someone to appear. "You have the key." My grip tightened around the cold metal key still in my hand. "What do you mean? Why me?" Panic rose within me, forcing my thoughts to scatter. Because you can hear them, she said simply. That's why they're calling for you. I staggered back, mind racing. The whispers, the giggles, it had all led me here. This isn't real, I whispered, shaking my head. It's very real, she insisted. But your time is running out. You have to make a choice. The way she said choice sent a shiver down my spine. A choice about what? I pushed, trying to stall for time. I didn't trust her, but I was trapped in this nightmarish place. Follow me, or confront them, she suggested, her expression bland. But staying here will only put you in danger. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to run, to bolt away from this woman and the inexplicable fear that surrounded her. But something deeper urged me to stay. If there was a chance to save them or even myself, I had to know more. And if I follow you? I asked carefully. I'll bring you to the room, she said, nodding toward the stairs above us. Where it started. The darkness loomed behind me, gnawing at my back. I could imagine the restless spirits, trapped and angry. I couldn't abandon them, I couldn't leave without knowing the truth. Okay, I finally said, my voice trembling. Lead the way. She turned and started up the stairs, glancing back every few steps as if waiting for someone or something to catch up. Anxiety swelled in my chest. I followed hesitantly, the cold metal handle of my key a constant reminder of what I had discovered. When we reached the third floor, she paused before a door that looked older than the rest. This is the room, she whispered, pressing her hand against the cracked surface. You have to unlock it. With a shaky hand, I approached the door. As I inserted the key, I felt an overwhelming rush of energy, like static filling the air. I glanced back at her, but she only nodded, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of hope and dread. As the door creaked open, a cold wind pulled at me, forcing me to step inside. The room was cloaked in shadows, the air thick with the smell of decay. My heart raced, and I had the sudden feeling I was being washed over by whispers again, more urgent this time, more desperate. That's when I saw them. A group of small figures huddled in the corner. Their faces were turned away, shadows obscuring their features. But it was the eyes wide, pleading that struck a familiar chord. They turned toward me, and I froze. Then someone spoke from the darkness. Welcome home. I had to brace myself against the doorframe. Their faces small, terrified, and somehow familiar sent a jolt through me. What do you want? I forced out, my voice shaking. Help us, one of the voices said, its tone soft and shaky. We're lost. I blinked, trying to comprehend their words. Lost? How could they be lost? They were children, but all I felt was dread. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The woman I had followed stood just behind me, her presence a stark contrast to the fragile figures huddled in the corner. They need you, she urged. Why? I asked, my fear mixing with a flicker of curiosity. What happened to them? They were brought here, the woman said, her eyes darting to the shadows. Just like you. They can't leave until you help them finish their story. I didn't understand. What story? I hadn't even heard theirs. The air was thick with a cloying sense of despair that made my stomach churn. I stepped closer, eyes locked on the children. What do you need from me? One of the children, a boy with tousled hair, took a step forward. You have to let us out, he said, voice trembling. We're stuck. The others are coming. The tremor in his voice sent a wave of panic through me. Who are the others? Before he could answer, the room seemed to shift. The walls felt like they were closing in, the shadows creeping closer, alive with a consuming darkness. A soft rustle echoed from behind me, an unsettling sound that intensified my fear. Look out! The boy shouted, but it was too late. Something shifted just outside the door. I felt the presence of a figure lurking, a shadow that moved too fast. I turned, heart racing again. What is happening? Don't let them in. The woman yelled as the whispers surged, flooding the room with chaos. The children pressed closer together, their wide eyes filled with terror. With my heart pounding, I slammed the door shut, locking it behind me. I turned to the woman, desperation clutching my chest. What do I do? Hold on to your key, she said urgently. It's the only way to protect you from those who want to take you. As I held the key tighter, I turned back to the room. The children now looked more frightened than ever. I felt their gaze on me, pleading and yet filled with something else, something darker that hinted at their true nature. This isn't a safe place, I whispered. The boys stepped forward again, voice quivering. You can't leave us. If you do, they'll come for you next. A chill ran down my spine. I could sense a presence lurking near. The shadows danced taller, closing in like a blanket, suffocating every flicker of light. Stay with us, he urged, reaching towards me with tiny hands. But just then, the whispers amplified, a deafening chorus of cries that gnawed at my sanity. Someone was indeed coming, and it felt like I was running out of time. Then, from the darkness, I caught a glimpse of something even more unsettling, a figure, looming, far more substantial than the children. Its eyes sparkled with malice. Now you're really home, it hissed. A sense of icy dread washed over me as I realized they weren't the only ones trapped here. And maybe, just maybe, I was too late to save them. The figure lingered at the edge of the room, its presence filling the space with an oppressive darkness. The air buzzed with tension, and the children pressed against the wall, their faces pale and sweaty. I could see the boys' hands trembling as they reached for me, their desperate hope pinning all my fear onto a single point. Please, he whispered again, his voice breaking. You have to help us. I was about to scream, to ask him how, when the woman behind me suddenly forced my attention. You need to act now, she urged. If they get through, it's over for all of you. Before I could process her words, the shadows morphed, twisted forms growing more distinct as they reached for the door. I don't know why I believed her. Maybe it was the urgency in her voice or the sheer terror on the children's faces. All right, I stammered. What do I need to do? The woman's eyes flickered to the key clutched in my hand. You have to unlock their past, she said. You need to find out what binds them to this place. I took a shaky breath, trying to grasp her meaning. A sound echoed outside, an eerie scraping, like nails on glass. My heart raced at the thought of what might come through that door. I turned to the children. What do you remember? What happened to you? They exchanged glances, and the boy gulped, clearly struggling. We were playing, he said finally. But then we followed a path into the woods, and it changed. Changed? I pressed, fear clawing at me. What do you mean? It got dark, one of the girls murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The trees whispered. They told us to keep walking, to not look back. But the further we went, the more twisted it all became. Then another sound pierced the air, a low growl that sent shivers down my spine. The woman gave a frantic look toward the door. You don't have much time. Do you know how to escape? I asked, voice trembling. They have to face their fears, the woman replied, her voice urgent. It's what holds them here. If you help them remember, you might be able to break the curse. Break the curse? I echoed, panic rising in my chest. How? Ask them. She urged. Find out what they fear the most and help them confront it. But you need to be quick, the shadows will soon be inside. The children's eyes widened in horror. We don't want to go back. The boy screamed, and I noticed tears streaking down his face. Please don't make us. I felt a knot in my chest. But if we don't, they won't let us go. We'll end up like them. Sudden dread flooded the room as I felt a shift in the air. The whispers were louder now, morphing into incoherent screams that filled my mind. I could almost feel the cold fingers of the shadowy figures creeping around us, closing in. "Remember!" I shouted to the children, desperation pouring out. "What are you afraid of? We can face it together." The air grew heavy, pressing down. Then, the boys stepped back, eyes glossing. The dark and the whispers, it was real. I felt a surge of courage. Then let us light a way through it. Let us face what happened in the woods. Just as I finished my sentence, a loud bang reverberated through the door, shaking the frame. The whispers crescendoed, turning into a deafening roar. I felt my own heartbeat quicken, panic rushing in again. "Help us!" The children cried out once more, gripping each other tightly. Then everything went dark, plunging us into an endless void. I could no longer hear the chaos outside or even my own thoughts. The darkness pressed against me, and I sensed that something was about to change, something terrifying. In that moment, I had no idea how wrong I was about to be, as shadows enveloped us all. I gasped as light flickered back into existence, the darkness pulling away like a curtain being drawn. I found myself in a familiar place. I was back in the children's ward, standing in front of room 302. The air felt charged, crackling with electricity. The whispers were gone, replaced by a heavy silence, as if the hospital itself was holding its breath. My heart raced as I glanced around. The clock above the nurse's station ticked loudly, but nothing else moved. I looked down at the key still gripped tightly in my hand. Had it been real? Was it a dream? I felt disoriented, caught in a limbo of dread and relief, unsure of whether I had truly escaped. Then, I heard a faint sound, a child's laugh echoing through the corridor. I turned, gripping the key tighter. The sound was soft and distant, but it was unmistakably real. My gut twisted with uncertainty. What was happening? I needed to know where it came from, what it meant. Pushing through the fear, I stepped toward the sound, down a hallway that felt both familiar and alien. With each step, the laughter grew clearer, a haunting melody pulling me forward. Suddenly, I found myself back in the pediatrics ward. But it was different now. The lights, which had once flickered ominously, were warm. I approached the door to room 302 but couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching me. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see that shadowy figure. But the corridor was empty. Then the laughter stopped. I reached for the door handle, hesitated, and then twisted it. The door creaked open to reveal a scene I never expected. Inside, the room was illuminated by soft, golden light. The shadows that had once engulfed it were gone, replaced by the gentle warmth of playful energy. A small group of children stood in the center, their faces bright with joy. They looked alive again. "Come play!" They chorused, gesturing for me to join them, their smiles innocent, untouched by the darkness I had witnessed. I felt a wave of conflicting emotions crash over me. Had I somehow freed them? Or was this a trap, another trick of the shadows? I stepped inside, the warmth wrapping around me. "Is this a dream?" I whispered, awe mixing with uncertainty. "Not a dream," the boy with tousled hair replied, his grin wide. "You helped us. We can finally leave." But something deep in my gut told me this was too neat. A shift in the atmosphere made me pause. I glanced out the corner of my eye. Was there movement? In the distance, shadows flickered at the edges of the room, threatening to bleed back into view. Heart racing, I turned back to the children. "Are you sure?" I asked, fear creeping back in, urgent and raw. "What about the others, the ones outside?" "They're gone," the girl whispered, her voice barely above a murmur as she looked down, her innocent smile fading. "They can't come back." A knot twisted in my stomach. "What do you mean?" Just then, the door slammed shut behind me. The laughter that had filled the room vanished, replaced by an oppressive silence, a silence that was thick with dread. "What is happening?" I shouted, backing away. The children's faces twisted, something darker flickering across their features. This was not the joyous scene I had stepped into, it was shifting, contorting into something malevolent. The boy stepped forward, his voice bearing a heavy weight. "We just wanted to play, but you have to stay with us now." Shadows crept along the walls, curling around the children's feet, darkness reaching hungrily toward me. I stumbled back, heart racing. "No!" I screamed, but the door wouldn't budge. The walls felt closer, the laughter returned, but this time, it was twisted, echoing with the mocking tones of the lost souls I had encountered. I turned to the children one last time, their faces now fragmented beams of light like flickering stars in an unending void. "You can't keep me!" I yelled, grasping the key tightly. "I'm not going to be trapped here." In a burst of courage, I thrust the key toward the door. "Let me out!" The shadows recoiled in sudden fear, the laughter transforming into shrieks that pierced through the air. The energy shifted. The children's faces faded along with the darkness. "You have to find us!" they cried, their voices mingling in a cacophony of despair. Then everything exploded into blinding light. I stumbled back, feeling an invisible force pulling at my very being. I was hurled through space, the laughter fading into the distance. I found myself crashing against hard tiles. I blinked against the sudden bright light flooding my vision. I was outside the hospital, gasping for breath, the night sky stretching endlessly above me. I lay on the cool ground, disoriented and trembling. What had I just experienced? My heart raced, echoing the whispers still echoing in my mind. "Find us," they said, gently haunting. I looked back at Pinewood General. It loomed, unchanged and relentless, a prison for secrets. I couldn't shake the sense that something remained unresolved. I moved my legs, preparing to leave, but glancing once more at the building, I knew Pinewood wasn't done with me. Some questions would linger forever, floating in the spaces between shadows and light, leaving me unsure of where the truth ended and the nightmares began.